Hi, everybody. This is John Farian with Live Large Universe, and I've got another amazing show for you tonight. I've got Kristen Almer here with me from RideSafe Foundation, powered by BRP. How are you doing tonight, Kristen?
I'm great, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm doing fantastic. Weather out on the West Coast here wasn't super great this weekend, but I got a snow park, Somerville Snow Park cleaned up, got a little jeeping done, and then got some chores done around the house this weekend. I know I was chatting with you before the show, and you just had a long travel week, and you're just kind of trying to recover from all the traveling you've been doing lately, right?
Yeah, it's been a busy last couple of months, so I'm finally getting settled in here also. And right before Memorial Weekend, I think that's what all of us are doing. We're cleaning things up so that we can enjoy the summer.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, I've got a little bit of an off-roading camping trip planned for this coming weekend, and yeah, there's a lot of work to get ready for that coming up too. Well, Kristen,
Yeah.
as people are starting to come in, we've got some live viewers already coming in. There's a few things that they need to know. So anybody who's watching this live, and or if you're watching the replay later, either way, go into the comments and let us know where you're watching from. And what that'll do is that'll pop up your name so I can see who's watching, and it'll let us know kind of what kind of a reach we have, what kind of impact we have. And for this show specifically, let us know what kind of power sports all of you participate in. We are going to be talking tonight mostly about ATV safety, but so much of the concept of this is going to overlap into so much of all kinds of power sports and power sports safety. And so let us know where you're from and what kind of power sports you're involved in. And then the final thing I want you to do too is to please share the show out. If you share the show out, you're going to be entered in to win an amazing prize. So check this out. I have a first aid kit from Mountain Lab. So it's a backcountry first aid kit. This would go right into your ATV, into your snowmobile, wherever it is that you're out there enjoying the backcountry with, or just enjoying the trails with. But a great product. Again, a safety focused show here tonight. This is a perfect type of a gift that's available to you simply for sharing this. So what I do is I go back to all the episodes that I've had this, and if you shared this out, you're going to get entered in to win, and somebody will get this mailed to them once we get this all wrapped up. Drop that back down, and Kristen, I think we are at the point where I'd love to have you just introduce yourself a little bit. Let everybody get to know who you are a little bit. Before we get into all this safety stuff, we need to know, who is Kristen?
Oh gosh, that's a huge question. I don't know. I don't know. Like my friends are better off telling the world about that. But yeah, my name is Kristen Almer, and I am the executive director and I'm the co-founder of the RideSafe Foundation. And we are powered by BRP, as John mentioned. So yeah, I guess who am I? That's what I do, but that's not who I am.
Oh,
I've got
exactly.
a long history in motorsports and power sports. Actually, kind of came to the industry through friends. When I was in college, I just seemed to gravitate towards a lot of people who loved that adrenaline lifestyle. And I tended to be kind of more scholarly, and I really loved studying and doing all of those things, which sort of seems boring. But in the same token, like I needed to contrast that with something that was super high adrenaline. And so I had a lot of friends who rode and a lot of them who competed. But because of that, I kind of got involved in helping them to write sponsorship proposals. That's really how I got involved in the industry. And that would be probably, gosh, 1987, 1988,
Yeah.
when I was doing that originally. And yeah, got involved in helping people pitch their sponsorships. And from there, wow, I've had a 35-year run, major career. Shifted my focus from what I went to college for, which was to be a federal Indian attorney,
That's
as
awesome.
into a power sports sponsorship consultant. So
Yeah, I
that,
have a feeling your career is probably one of those careers like, so many other people, and probably including me a little bit, is you didn't intend to get into what you got into. It was probably one of those things that you just kind of organically got bounced around a little bit and you just fell into your groove, right? Is that about right?
yeah, actually, I mean, you would never in a million years have said that I would have gotten involved in. So I didn't know that I could do it, to be
I
honest
know,
with
right?
you.
Like, who
But
would have
what
thunk that was
happens
a
is,
job back then, right?
yeah, well, you have, I think, we all have certain gifts and abilities, and it's other people who notice them before we do. And
Amen.
then they're the ones who ask us to participate in things. And then as we spend more time and we start to see fruit from that, then you really can't help but move in that direction. So that happened to
Yeah.
me for sure.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And part of my research, I'm always, going to your website. I actually looked you up on LinkedIn, and I saw some of the names, and I mean, really big names in the power sports industry that you've been involved with in the while, right? And way back early on, even you were involved with Yamaha, right, as part of your career path. And then the biggest one that stood out to me that I think will come up in our conversation a few times is Nitro Circus. Do you want to just maybe go a little bit deeper into what your role was with Nitro Circus and what you did with them?
Yeah, actually, well, it's funny you mentioned Yamaha because they actually were probably the least noteworthy client of any that I had. I
Yeah,
mean, going way back in the snowmobile industry, which is really where I got my start, I was the first person to actually help a team owner build and create an independent team. So I
it's
had
amazing.
six of the teams that I helped build. So was the architect for those independent snowcross teams, and then worked with the snowcross sanctioning organization, both when it was owned by, way back when it was WPS, and then later, when John Daniels bought it, worked with him as well in developing that. But yeah, Nitro Circus gets floated around quite a bit around my name, but that's not me involved in Nitro Circus. That's my co-founder, Hubert
Yeah,
Rowland. So Hubert Rowland is one of the core members of Nitro Circus, and I am a consultant for Hubert, and I have been for 15, I guess, going on 15 years, long before
yeah,
the RideSafe Foundation started. But yeah, I don't do a whole lot for them particularly, other than Hubert.
that's awesome. So, did you teach Hubert how to become a redneck, or was that organically natural for him?
He's the greatest. I love Hubert because it's funny. Hubert has this real country boy way of talking, or
Yeah,
redneck, which is where he gets that moniker. But he really is a genius, and that I think that really fools people. They just don't understand how highly intelligent and capable he really is, because when he talks, it you get a completely, he's just sort of a good old boy.
he
So
speaks
these
redneck,
guys,
right?
yeah, and I think that that's really interesting too, because that's what I have found in the motorsports and power sports world.
Yeah,
Like, I think that people that aren't involved in racing or in competition, professional competition, they think, that it's maybe some, it's a redneck behavior, but the reality is that, I mean, there are some truly incredible, highly intelligent,
agreed.
super technical, engineer oriented, so disciplined, just great, wonderful people in the industry, which is why I stayed there all these years.
That's amazing. That's awesome. And so, one quick reminder for anybody who's watching here live, thank you for being here. I see a bunch of people have already gone in here and let us know where they're watching from. So, if you haven't done that yet, please do that. Let us know what power sports you're involved in, and please share the show out. And if you are, we'll get you in to win that first aid kit that we talked about at the beginning of the show. So, with that, Kristen, we're going to take a little bit of a sad turn in the story here and kind of a tragic part of your history and your family's history that really is what was the beginning of you getting involved in this idea of ATV safety. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your nephew Logan and the unfortunate accident that he was involved in?
Yeah. So, as I mentioned, I was a consultant. Well, at the leading into Logan's accident, I had been a consultant in both the motorsport and the power sports industry for 25 years, and that's awfully significant as we go into his accident because, keep in mind, I had seen a large number of incidents occur, whether that was with personal family and friends because of all the people that I hung around with that tended to do this, or people from a competitive standpoint that were, programs I was affiliated with or, or knew of. So injuries, that happens from time
Yeah.
to time. And but yeah, it was Memorial Weekend. It was I'm just going to tell you that sometimes I can get through this without getting upset, and sometimes I can't. So I have no idea. I'll
Do
just,
do whatever feels natural.
yeah,
It wouldn't be the first time
okay,
somebody has gotten emotional or cried on the show, including this big guy over here. I'm kind of a sap
yeah.
myself, so feel free.
Yeah. So yeah, it was Memorial Weekend. It was a Friday. It was May 24th. It was 2013. And I was at our lake home in northern Wisconsin getting ready for the Memorial Weekend. We always have a big party every year, so people come out and enjoy the lake. And I was making, getting things ready for dinner, and I got a phone call that Logan had been involved in an ATV accident. So when I got that phone call, I just dropped everything, ran out the door, and just rushed over to my brother's house, which was about 5 miles away, not very far. But the whole time that I was driving there, I remember thinking how many times that I had been familiar with accidents and injuries to my earlier point, and how many times there had been like catastrophic injuries that our professional athletes had sustained, and how when you hear of that, your first thought is, oh my gosh, they're never gonna be able to do what they were doing before, or your mind just goes to the worst. But it would turn out, oftentimes, that a year later, these people would be doing far more than they had ever been doing before. And so, the whole time that I was on my way over to my brother's house, I just kept thinking that, everything was going to be okay, because I'd seen this happen so many times before, and that, the advent of all the technology in medicine, that, we were going to get through it, and that I would be there to be able to help calm what I knew my brother was going to be upset. I knew that his wife, Heather, was going to be upset. And I just figured, that because I'd had so much experience seeing it, that I was going to be there to help them navigate it. But when I got there, I wasn't prepared. Yeah.
Take a minute. Feel free. I mean, it's a very
Um,
emotional story, and it's somebody who's very close to you. And so, just take a
just,
breath. Take a breath. Right?
yeah, I guess I wasn't prepared to get the news that he didn't make it. And that so anyway, I got there. I arrived on scene at my brother's house, and our family friend approached me and told me to stop because I was just trying to get down onto the property. And I just he said he didn't make it. And the first time he said it to me, I remember the words just kind of like floated right through my head, and I thought, I didn't really, it's like it has no effect when somebody
Yeah.
says that. When somebody tells you something like that, there was no effect. And I just kept trying to keep walking, and he stood back in front of me again, and he said, Kristen, he didn't make it. And, so it was at that moment that I looked over his right shoulder, and I could see Logan's body in the road. And so that introduced just, it was so life altering, from that point forward.
Yeah.
It's so life altering that I don't really, it's almost like you can't remember what your life is like before that. So, um,
Oh,
but I'll kind of give you a little bit of what I know, what we know happened.
yeah.
So, Logan was 11 years old, and Logan so lived with mom, dad, 12-year-old brother, and then Logan, who's 11. So Logan and his brother were shy of a year apart. So dad that morning apparently had parked his adult-sized ATV in the driveway because he had the intention of teaching his older son how to ride. The big hunting family, so Hunter was 12, and so it was the first summer that Hunter was 12, and his dad wanted to be able to share that with him and be able to start teaching him. So he had instructed his son to make sure that he got safety certification and to be able to show that to his father when he had gotten home from work. So he parked the ATV in the driveway. Logan and Hunter, when they got off the school bus, the ATV was there. Mom arrives. I don't know if she maybe got there even before the boys did. She was a school teacher, still is, at the same school where the boys went. And she's a special education teacher, so she's concentrated on caring for, children that are maybe disadvantaged in a particular way. And so, wonderful mom, wonderful dad. So it was a warm day. It was about 64 degrees that day, as I recall it, which was really unusual because that year winter did not let its grip on us up until literally the week before. There was snow on the ground the week before, which is unusual for us.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
because of that, it had created this climate of just everybody was so excited because it was Memorial Weekend, it was warm. Everybody's just excited because we've got all kinds of fun things happening that weekend. Then you got graduation going to happen and you're
Yeah.
just kicking off the summer. And where we live, summer is, I mean, it's just paradise. So that's kind of the mood. And so Hunter was in the house. He was working on getting his online safety certification. And, their mother had gone with her girlfriend for a walk. Her friend had come over with her son. And so he's 16. So the 16-year-old and my 12-year-old nephew were in the house, as I understand it, working on getting online safety certification completed. Mom goes on a walk a half a mile, from the house with her girlfriend. She's just on a walk it's a county road. They live in the middle of nowhere. So no big deal. Everything's fine. And but apparently the key was not in the ignition when my brother left it, but apparently Logan was able to get access to that key, and he started that machine, and he got on it, no helmet, no safety gear. He had no helmet, he had no gear, he had no experience, he did not drive these things. It was an adult-sized machine. He essentially hit the throttle, and we can only, I can only imagine. I wasn't there. I don't know exactly what happened, but I know based on what the outcome was and the scenario and all of those things, what happened. Clearly, he got on it, and when he did, he hit the throttle. And when somebody who doesn't have a whole lot of experience on this equipment, he weighs 85 pounds, and he's on a full-size adult machine. When he hits the throttle, they do something that in the motorcycle industry, as they call whiskey throttling. So they can do it on ATVs as well. So he hits the throttle, and he's a young child. He's 11. And all of a sudden, the huge rush of power and force and energy, what happens is they grab tighter and they're holding on because they're afraid they're going to fall off. That's
Yeah.
their first initial reaction, is to just hold on tighter. So now he's holding on tighter. Well, he's going faster now. And so, where's the brake? Does he even know where the brake is? How does he find the brake? I
Yeah, no
mean,
muscle memory at all, right? It's just like, I'll pause you for a second while you kind of gather your
yeah,
thoughts there, but it's like the scenario you're describing is not uncommon at all. Like what I have seen over and over again is that when people get into a dangerous situation, whether it be on snow, any of this stuff, it's fight, flight, or freeze. Like you get in these panic situations, and a lot of times that's kind of your freeze motion. Is like you panic and you freeze and you can't respond. Even my own
yeah,
wife, just a year ago on a snowmobile trip, had a spindle on her snowmobile snap and break on the trail. Just it was a manufacturer defect, and it got veered off the trail, and she just panicked and froze and like rode right off the trail into a tree. And it was such a close call. We were so thankful she didn't get terribly hurt. But just to reinforce the fact of like, this is not an uncommon scenario where someone panics and they just kind of get into this freeze mode, right? And so just know that Logan wasn't alone in the kind of the way the human body reacts sometimes. So
yeah. Thank you. And I know, so he's 11 years old and he's small. I mean, he
yeah,
weighed only about 85 pounds to begin with.
yeah,
He was a little guy. Being 11, he wasn't a big 11-year-old. He was a small 11-year-old, super thin. But anyway, he hits that throttle, and he's accelerating now on a gravel driveway that isn't very long at all. I would say it's, you could maybe park 12 vehicles end to end in that driveway before it intersects with the county road. And so he's accelerating down that gravel driveway. And, I know what he was thinking, because his entire life he'd been told not to go into that county road.
yeah,
All of his life, Logan, don't chase the ball into the road. Logan, don't follow the dog into the road. Logan, don't wait for the bus. And Logan, get out of the road. Stay out of the road. Don't ride your bike in the road. Don't wait for the bus in the road. All those things. Don't go into the road. Logan, don't go into the road. And surely that's what he was thinking, because as he approached that county road and he's going at a very high rate of speed on a full-size adult ATV, he turned, and he turned it at a very high rate of speed. And when he did that, the tires, slid on and clipped the edge of the asphalt, which caused that ATV to roll. They figure it flipped 2.5 times, and how they know that, I have no idea. But that was
Yeah.
what I remember hearing. And when it came down, Logan sustained a massive traumatic head injury as a result of that accident, and he died immediately. So, and it wasn't, it's hard to communicate what that means. Because, we use words like, well, he died, it was a massive head injury, or whatever. The reality of what that looks like and what people experience in the middle of that is just beyond horrific. And so that's what essentially I walked into, was about maybe 30 minutes after the accident had happened. I was the first family member to arrive on scene. And, his mother was absolutely hysterical, and my brother was still at work. And my nephew, his brother, was totally catatonic. He was completely catatonic, totally frozen in fear.
Yeah.
And, you have to start then trying to figure out how you're going to put those pieces back together again. And in the meantime, you're waiting for your brother to show up, who's, this is, just that's what started this whole thing.
Yeah. It's
Was that.
catastrophic and such a sad story that you're so brave, for telling it, right? Because it's no fun to have to relive those things. So, your mission to share a story like that to help others. And I think, we have people's attention for sure at this point, because there's no way you can't, hearing a story like that. And, it's, we all have our own versions of our stone stories of things that have happened in our lives that are just moments like that, that are just catastrophic and memorable, that, to your point, like, life is never the same.
Yeah, it's never the same. And the thing of it is that the moment that I heard that Logan did not survive,
Yeah.
the moment I heard it, I don't recall taking 3 steps. And I vowed right then and there, I vowed that we were not going to lose Logan for no reason. And I meant it then, and I mean it right now. We are
Yeah.
not losing him for no reason. But I didn't know what that meant
Yeah.
then. I didn't know what that meant. And actually, what leads into the creation of the RideSafe Foundation is, because I'd had so many years of experience, 25 at that point, working with some of the world's most high profile and influential athletes, race team owners, sanctioning organizations, aftermarket companies, OEMs. I had people calling me from all over the United States, Canada, and some people in Europe, just saying, Christina, we're so sorry. We're so sorry. What can we do? And, at that point, there's nothing anybody can do,
Yeah.
and I remember just telling them all, please just tell your kids to wear a helmet. And because that's what I thought it was. I thought that Logan died because he wasn't wearing a helmet. And it turns out that that was one factor that played a role in Logan's fatality, but that was not why we lost Logan. And
Yeah.
and that really, so when, after his accident had occurred, and I had all these people, that were desperate to do something to help, and I'm, for 25 years of my life, I've been working to use the motorsport and power sports, the most highly competitive, world-class environments and people, to shift consumer behavior. That's what we do in racing,
Yeah.
and also modify products, and create new products, and innovate, and build new relationships with people. But there's just so much content that comes out of that, and people want to emulate those athletes, and so the following year they're doing what they saw the year before. And I knew that, And so all these people that were calling me on that very day were some of the most influential people that I had dealt with in my career. And I just kept, I realized very quickly that, in my network, that if we could all band together, and they were offering that maybe there was some story to tell, which at that point I had no idea how big the story was to tell, or how serious of an issue ATV injuries and fatalities are for children. I had no idea. And I'd been in
Yeah.
the industry for 25 years. So,
And that was part of your journey is, you had shared with me pre this show over the last week or so that we've talked is that, you dug into those statistics and the data and that kind of helped you kind of piece together this vision for, what were the real issues and maybe what could be done with it. And I believe also helped you kind of build this first steps of building this foundation now, right?
yeah. And so, what happens when you suffer through something like that? And like I try to explain to people, you know, like I was never worried about Logan. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but I never was worried about Logan because I know where Logan is. I'm
Yeah.
not worried about Logan. What you're left with is that every single person that you love, instantly, they shattered. All of them shattered, whether it was my brother, my sister-in-law, my other nieces and nephews, my daughter, my mom, my dad, my siblings, all of our friends in the community, as they're trying to get to the property, trying to figure out what's going on. And I'm watching them, show up. All of a sudden, you're recognizing that, man, they're going to step on a landmine that I can't stop them from stepping on.
Yeah.
And that is going to completely destroy them. And then you're dealing with a mass casualty event. It is not just the person who has been fatally injured in these accidents. It's a mass casualty event in terms of everybody who loves that person. And some of those people, you'll barely be able to keep them alive. And that becomes your whole goal. So as we had gone through that horrific trauma and recognizing, me seeing it firsthand, all these people that I loved, and me being one person and not able to help everybody, I had to pick one to try to help. And the reality is that you go through in your own mind, you cannot sleep. You wake up thinking, oh my God, I had the worst dream. And then 2 seconds later, you go, man, that wasn't a dream at all. And the world literally starts turning backwards. And I don't know how to describe that, but it's true.
Yeah.
The world literally starts turning backwards. Everything is dark and heavy and horrible. It's just so hard. And so in my mind, I had to figure out how to right the world. And the only way I could figure out how to right the world is to figure out, well, what happened and how do we prevent it from happening again? And that's it. My brain became totally obsessed with, I wanted to know exactly what had happened. And there needed to be some predictability to it, because without predictability, there was no way I was going to be able to protect anybody. And I worked in the industry. So now I'm realizing all these people I work with and care about, and all of
Yeah.
their friends, family, are at risk of these things. So I started at that point just kind of doing research because it's what I'm good at, and it's what was natural for me. And the more I did it, man, that's when I really started to uncover what these numbers were. And that became so shocking to me that, at that point, that was in 2013. But, I started to realize, that 1 out of every 5 ATV related fatality in the United States is a child who is under the age of 16. That's not 16-year-olds. That's 15 years of age and younger. One in
Yeah.
every 5.
It's crazy.
Okay. So all of a sudden you're like, well, I never heard that before. And how did I never hear that before? Because I work in the industry.
Yeah.
Nobody in the industry really knows what's happening on the periphery with the consumers. And some of us encounter it, and then that was it. I just got obsessed. Totally obsessed, because I was trying to figure out, well, how do I save my own daughter? How do I save my other nieces and nephews? I think, there were a lot of things. Sorry.
No,
There
that's
were a
okay.
lot of things that were said during those days, but I remember my brother saying something, and he could not talk. I mean, for God, I don't even remember how long it was. I mean, it was probably weeks. Robbie couldn't even talk, but he finally sat down and he finally started talking one night, and he just said, he didn't say much. He just said, the worst part of it, he said, well, losing Logan was horrible. He said that the worst part was that he couldn't prevent it from happening again. Now, he wasn't talking about an ATV accident necessarily, because my brother has 5 children. And so, you realize, like, here's my brother trying to figure out how's he going to save his other kids. Well, this is all of our problem. This is your problem, John.
Yeah. Amen.
This is my problem. This is Robbie's problem. This was all of our problem. And it's our problem today.
Yeah.
Like, how are you going to prevent it from happening again? And the only way you can prevent something from happening is if you know what it was that led to it. And so
Yeah.
that sent me completely on this deep dive into numbers. And I've been researching it for 11 years. And I've had conversations with some of the top experts in the United States and in other countries. And I've listened to, I don't know, 100 families tell me their personal stories. I've had conversations with trauma surgeons. I've had conversations with injury prevention specialists at local hospitals, with administrators at hospitals, with law enforcement officers, with safety advocates that are hands-on, trying to do safety training, with other athletes, with other families. I mean, I've had so many conversations with people, and it was only it was 4.5 years of diving into these numbers, still never finding out what the pattern was, when something very fortuitously happened to me that really changed everything. Because prior to that, it was just this obsession of
Yeah.
trying to quiet my own mind
Yeah.
and figure out where's the perimeter of safety. Well, it didn't appear that there was one.
Yeah.
And like, if your house burns down, you're going to sit there and you're going to think, well, my house burned down. Oh, here's what caused it. And then when you build your next house, you're going to make sure that whatever it was that caused your house to burn down, you're not going to find it yourself in that situation, right?
Yeah. We all
Well,
learn, right? Yeah.
right. And so this is absolutely not only what I went through, but I'm sure my brother went through, and what any one of us that were affiliated with that, and for the thousands of families that have endured the same thing, this is exactly what you do. So 4.5 years after Logan's accident, and this is my mindset. I was working on a project for one of my clients, and I was trying to find out how many ATVs and UTVs had been sold in the United States, and I couldn't find it. And I was about 6 hours deep into that and super frustrated because, I know that these numbers are easy to find because, I mean, that's what I do. Like, you want to know how many motorcycles are sold, you can find it. You want to know how many snowmobiles are sold, you can find it. But
Yeah.
for some reason, I couldn't figure out how many ATVs and UTVs were sold. So this was like, I was just going to be tenacious. And
Yeah.
but about 6.5 hours into it, I tripped on a press release that was written by Rova. And I had found their website, and I'm thinking, my God, Kristen, are you kidding? Like, why didn't you think of Rova? Rova has that information. It's exactly what I thought.
Fill us in on who Rova is for us who don't know. So.
Oh, yeah. So Rova is the Recreational Off-Highway Vehicle Association, and they're what we refer to in the industry as a trade association. And they're much like the International Snowmobile Manufacturers Association. In fact, many of the people that sit on the board of Rova are the same people that are on the board of the International Snowmobile Manufacturers Association.
Got it.
Because it's
Okay.
the OEMs, right, that are contributing to this association. And Rova's is actually tasked with communicating a message of safety to consumers for the industry. But I was just looking for numbers for, like how many had been sold. And because I know that if I go to the International Snowmobile Manufacturers Association, they'll tell me not only how many snowmobiles have been sold, but what color hair, the second wife of the guy that bought one, years ago is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous. So, but here I am on Rova's web. Okay, that was a little tongue in cheek. That was not legit.
All good.
But it's not that far off. to be honest with you. But anyway, because they know everything. And so that's what's so great about the snowmobile industry. Like they know everything about the
There you go.
consumers. So I'm at Rova and I'm digging in and I'm trying to find these numbers because I was pitching a sponsorship deal for somebody in the power sports industry. And I can't pitch it without the data. So here I am. I'm on the website, and I'm like, okay, Rova's got it. So I'm on Rova's website. I'm trying to find it, and there's 5 tabs on the top of this website. I'm super impatient. I got no time left, and I'm like looking at all these tabs. None of them make any sense. Where I'm going to find some statistics, and so I just noticed there's one that says news. So I'm like, okay, I'm just click on that news tab. Click on the news tab, and I figured, you know what? I'm just going to open up one of these press releases because at the bottom of one of these press releases is going to be a link that's going to click out and it's going to give me all the data that I'm looking for.
Got it.
Like for more information, click here. That's what I figured. So, open up the news page and, I don't know, there's 100 press releases there. I'm like, I have no idea and I don't care. And I'm irritated at this point. So I took very clearly, remember, this is January of 2018.
Okay.
I took my mouse and I literally 1, 2, 3, click, because I'm just irritated and I got no time and I'm not going to read everyone and I don't even care. And I just randomly clicked on a press release. And when I did that, it opened up and the press release said something along the lines of, Rover reminds enthusiasts to use safe practices during the upcoming Memorial weekend. Whatever. I'm just scanning it like real quick. Like I got no time now because I'm 6.5 hours into this thing. And I'm just scanning real quickly, and my eye goes to the center of this press release. And in the center of this press release, it said 8 common sense guidelines for safe ATV use, something along those lines. And, the first one said, always wear your helmet. Number 2 was, if you're under the age of 16, never ride without adult supervision. Number 3 was, make sure you're on the properly sized machine. Number 4 is, never ride on a paved surface. Number 5 is, use care when turning, whatever they are. And all of a sudden, like I'm looking through these things and I'm just scanning this thing because I'm waiting to find something that's a clickable link going to bring me to stats. All of a sudden, business Kristen becomes anti-Kristen. And I started looking at these things and I'm realizing that Logan got 6 out of the 8 of those things wrong.
Yeah.
6 out of the 8. And I'm like, my God.
You didn't have a chance.
For 4.5 years that I had been trying to figure out what had happened and I couldn't put my mind at rest. Here's this press release that I randomly, if you believe in that kind of stuff, clicked on this press release and I'm like, okay, like here it is. And I'm like, who wrote this thing? I'm like, because I realized that if Logan would have just got this message, that we wouldn't have lost him. So I go to the top of the press release because at that moment, I'm so overwhelmed. And, because I'm full-blown anti-Kristen at that point. Business is the last thing on my mind. And I'm thinking, who wrote this thing? I go to the top of the website to see who wrote it. And that's when I realized that the press release that I clicked on was the very press release that Rova had written and released 24 hours before Logan had been killed in 2013. Wow. And we never got that message.
Yeah.
Here I am 4.5 years later, and I finally got the message. And it was like a lightning rod hit me straight in the head. Or bolt, I guess, or rod, either way. It was literally like, I felt the whole top of my head just like burning. I was like, my God, we've got to do something. And it was in that moment that I realized that there were people out there that knew what these dangers were and that there was a predictable pattern and that they knew and that they were trying to get the message out, but that we weren't getting it. And that's when I just realized, I'm like, we need to do something. And so that's it. I called Rover right then and there and started a conversation with them and told them who I was and who I'd been working with. And, just realized that, Logan was never going to read a press release, for God's sakes. He was 11.
Yeah.
You're not going to read a press release, okay? I write press releases. I've issued them, and I think maybe 6 people click on. I don't care what press release you're going to issue. So the reality is that we had to do something. My heart from day one, as it is today, is to reach children. That is who I'm trying to reach. I get that we're going to be reaching adults, but my heart is to reach children because I just know Logan. Like, always try to think, how would I have got into Logan to prevent this from happening? And I know that the only way that we would have been able to do that is to go directly to his school with somebody super cool and to have a really fun
Yeah.
day and to be able to show him exactly all these things. And that's it. That's what started the RideSafe Foundation. And
Yeah.
I called Hubert Rowland, who I was working on the project for, and he's like, "I'm in, Kristen." And to Hubert's credit, he funded the RideSafe Foundation, which in its first iteration was called the Let's Ride Powersports Safety Program. But in its first iteration, Hubert paid for that out of his own pocket for 5 years.
Yeah, it's
Out of his
amazing.
own pocket, he did
Yeah.
that. So just because his heart was really he knew how bad it hurt and he wanted to do something. So he paid me to be able to dig in and do all the research, which is quite an extraordinary thing. He's really an
Yeah.
amazing person. So,
That's amazing. Yeah, and there's a website. I'll just kind of read off. It's ridesafefoundations.org is the website. We've got that in the link of the show today, right? If you go into the description, it's down there. You've covered a lot of good information here. The other things I have in my notes here are things like, what are you've kind of given us a lot of detail on it, but if you had to summarize, and I've got the bullets here too, is, talk about the mission for Ride Safe, and it's basically gear, safety, certification, and training. Do you want to elaborate on that a little bit, like in kind of what you've been
yeah,
doing and the work that you're doing?
right. So, the RideSafe Foundation's mission is to significantly reduce power sports related injuries and fatalities, particularly for children. That's our mission. Pretty broad. And the
Yeah.
question is, well, how are you going to do that? Right? Like, that's the question. How are you going to do that?
Yeah.
Well, so we do a number of things at the RideSafe Foundation. Our first and core thing that we do is we go directly to schools. That is a massive, time-consuming, heavy, labor-intensive. We need a
Yeah.
lot of support from the industry and outside the industry and law enforcement and associations like the Wisconsin ATV UTV Association, which is a major partner to us, the Minnesota ATV Safety Committee, the Iowa Off-Highway Vehicle Association, the ATV Safety Institute, ROVA, like all these different entities support what we do. And they're massive undertakings to go to schools and create this really fun event.
Yeah.
But in addition to that, we also are developing a website. We've got a website. It's pretty preliminary at this point, and we want it to be a resource hub for people when let's say you're in the state of Wisconsin and you want to buy an ATV for your child and you don't know what to do. Like, that information should be there on the website, right? Like, go to the Wisconsin DNR. They've got the information you need so that you can come to our website and get all the information that you need about rules, regulations, and what to do to stay safe, where to get your training, that kind of thing. But in addition to that, we also build teams. I mean, I want to build an army of athlete influencers that will take this message and use their platforms to be able to speak about safety. Because it's not that the power sports industry itself doesn't talk about safety, and a lot of people don't get this.
Yeah.
They do all the time. It's so deeply ingrained in the culture that they don't mention it necessarily because, I mean, I use the example all the time, like, you wouldn't tell me you brushed your teeth today. They're not going to talk about,
Yeah.
what they did for safety any more than you're going to tell me that you brushed your teeth, because it's just so integral to everything that they do. The problem is that isn't getting to people that are on the periphery and coming in contact with
Yeah.
this equipment. And so we need those athletes and those
Yeah.
influencers and people like yourself to use your platforms to be able to tell them what are the predictable things that we know. And so that's really, in spite of what we do at the Ride Safe Foundation, I think the more important conversation to have so that anybody watching the show can help protect the people they love, it's what are the precipitating factors that lead to these accidents and these injuries and fatalities. Because the reality is that's what this is about. There are known precipitating factors that contribute to these events, and And that's what we need to communicate, so that people are equipped and know it's not, you know, you, like as Rova says, wear your helmet.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't know. Have you heard that before? Have you ever ridden without your helmet? I mean, be honest.
Yeah,
Have
I mean
you?
that's the thing. I think it's actually I'm going to pause you for a second because there's a couple things I want to cover at this point, and
Yeah.
to just make this super real to the people who, most of the people who watch my platform are snowmobilers, and I think we're talking mostly ATVs here, but this is a very thing. Like as a snowmobiler, because it's cold weather, most of the time I think when we're out riding, we all tend to wear snowmobiles. Not everybody, but like 99.9% do. But here's the part that I see over and over and over again in the snowmobile industry, and the industry is plagued with it. And here's what I see over and over and over again that is right on track with what we're talking about. It's the loading and unloading or moving around of your equipment, like my snowmobile. Like when you're snowmobiling, you have a trailer, usually you have a truck with a sled deck on it, especially in that scenario. It's very, very common, even amongst, athletes and people just all over the social media. I see it 90 plus percent of the time. They're loading and unloading their equipment without helmets. And in my opinion, that's the most dangerous time of the entire day. It's like loading and unloading your machine. Like everybody that I know who has ever unloaded and loaded a snowmobile has at least one story of a close call they've had. And it was actually a friend of mine at one point who literally they knew I was the safety guy for Washington State and I was the safety guy for the Avalanche Center. And I was guilty, just like you called out, of loading and unloading my snowmobile without my helmet on because, it's just what everybody did. And they had their camera out and they're joking around. They're like, oh, look, I'm going to get a picture of John, without his helmet on, Mr. Safety. And I got immediately kind of like upset with the guy because I'm like, well, don't be a jerk, right? And then I thought about it, like, and especially over the next 24 hours, I thought about it. And I'm like, that guy just did me the most amazing favor ever. And like, who am I, somebody who's going to have a platform on safety and education, if I don't do it myself and to be a leading example? So, call to action for everybody here, like whether you're ATVing, snowmobiling, motorcycling, whatever, like wear the safety gear, wear the helmet, and do it all the time, not just in certain scenarios. And then here's the other thing that everybody here today can make a difference on. Like, like if you ever wonder, like, what can I do to make a difference, make a change? Think about it. Like, how random was it that you ran into that one article, Kristen, right? Here's the
Well, it
thing.
wasn't random. It
Well,
wasn't
I'm
random.
saying it was divine
Yeah.
intervention, right? That's the thing. That's the point.
Yeah. By
And
the
my,
way, do you know that the word coincidence is not in the Hebrew language?
I didn't
There
know
is
that.
no such thing as the word coincidence. Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Well,
I
here's the new
digress.
coincidence, and here's the new divine intervention for everybody
So
involved in
yeah.
watching this show today is get into the share link right now. Stop what you're doing, not literally stop watching the show, but go into the show and share this out because literally Todd Swing, Sody Clay, whoever's watching here, Bill Siebert, like, oh my gosh, one share and one person seeing it can make an entire difference and change somebody's life and the way they're thinking about it. Like them hearing the story of Logan, Kristen's story and her passion behind this, like getting this message out to everybody by simply sharing it and saying why it's important for someone to watch it. Like, don't just share it. Like, share it and say, this is a really important message. Please take time to listen to it and then share it. And you will absolutely make a difference in the community by doing such a thing. Man, Kristen, it's such a it's a horrific story, but like so many things in all of our lives is sometimes the worst things that can happen in our lives are the things that truly are the things that move us forward and inspire us to do many good things afterwards, right? To your point, you
Well,
didn't want Logan to pass in
I
vain, and at this point he's not because you're making such a difference in the world right now.
well, I thank you for saying that. And I want to, if you don't mind, I want to back up a little bit because
Please.
when you were talking about the helmets and I
Yeah.
asked you the question, have you ever not worn your helmet? And the answer to that question is always going to be yes. And I
Yeah.
want, this is what we have to understand. And this is why I do this differently. There's
Yep.
all kind, there are literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and probably thousands of organizations of people that have dedicated their lives to teaching people safety just on ATVs and side by sides. Okay. Those people are there. They already exist. They're
Yep.
already telling you, don't ride without your helmet. Okay. But the point is that, are you listening? Okay. So if I say to you, wear your helmet, you're like, yep, I'm going to wear my helmet. I'm a safe guy. I'm going to wear my helmet. All right. And you've just said, well, I know I just probably should. But the thing we have to start with is, well, why don't you wear your helmet? And I don't mean ever, because I'm not saying that you don't ever wear it, but when are you not wearing it? And what is your reason? Because whatever that reason is, me telling you to wear your helmet is not going to change that reason. So if
Yeah.
I'm a girl and I say, well, I don't want to put my helmet on because I'm going to mess my hair up, and then you say, well, wear your helmet, the next time that I'm in a situation where I don't want to wear my helmet or I don't want to mess my hair up, I'm not going to put a helmet on. So whatever the reason is, it's I'm just going to the barn. I'm just going to the mailbox. I'm not going very fast. It's too hot. Whatever your reason is, that's the reason that will stop you from doing it. And if so for me, I don't come at it that way. I'm here to tell you that there is data that shows clearly. And this data that I'm going to tell you right now, there are 3 states that I can quote it from. Because by the way, where the national, everybody's like, well, what's your source? Well, first of all, there's nobody keeping track of this stuff like you guys would hope there is on a national level. The vast majority of the numbers that we have and the data we have are coming from state agencies, and a lot of states aren't even tracking this stuff. So we have no idea how bad it really is, but this is what we do know. In the states of Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Florida, those are top states. The 9 out of 10 fatality victims are not wearing their helmet in an ATV accident. 9 out of 10.
Yeah.
So this is the case in the state of Wisconsin, and Logan was fatally injured in the state of Wisconsin. So if it's my job my job isn't here to tell you how big the problem is. My job is to tell you what to do about it. And I'm telling you that in 9 out of 10 fatalities, there's no helmet. So if I'm truly telling you, well, I want to reach children and I want to save these kids from experiencing what we did, then I've got to get them to put a helmet on. Well, how am I
Yeah.
going to do that? Am I going to do it by going, wear your helmet? Because guess what? That has been tried for 40 years. We
Yeah.
have to do more, and you have to give people the data. So the data is 9 out of 10 fatalities, there's no helmet. The next most significant data point is 95% of all fatalities, there's no safety certification. 95%.
Yep.
So if I'm looking at it and going, what's our mission? To significantly reduce injuries and fatalities, right? Power sports related injuries and fatalities. That
Yeah.
if I get you to wear a helmet and I get you to obtain safety certification, now I'm going to significantly reduce those numbers. I know
Amen.
that for a fact. Okay. But are there more things? And this is what has happened to me. It's like, I understand now that there's what I refer to as a cascade of fatal errors. And some people don't like that term. I don't know, call it whatever you want. For me, it is a cascade of fatal errors, and I know what they are. And it is fortuitously, in Logan's case, I gave you some details about his accident, but let me share this. Here's some data points. In 9 out of 10 fatalities, there's no helmet. That's Logan's case. No helmet. 95%, no safety certification. That's Logan. In 63% of all fatalities, it's a rollover. That's Logan. 70% of these cases out of the state of Minnesota, these numbers come from, but this is we hear this from states where, depends on your riding conditions, but by and large, 70% of fatalities happen in the right-of-way. That's Logan. There's a study that was done out of Indiana that showed that the vast majority of these accidents are, and believe me, if you have daughters and you somehow think this doesn't apply to you because what I'm about to say to you, you are dead wrong. Because I can show you what's been happening lately. But the data point that came out of Indiana was that the average, the vast majority of these were males ages 12 to 17. Now, Logan was 11, but he would have been 12 in less than 30 days. So I'm going to loop him in there.
Yeah.
So he's 12 to 17. He's male. That's another, data point. Happens late in the afternoon. Definitely Logan, yes. Happens on a weekend, yes, in Logan's case. Not only that, Logan was fatally injured on the deadliest weekend of the year, which is Memorial Weekend, which is next weekend, FYI, and by the way, for everybody watching. So Logan, again, that's another thing that nobody intervened on because none of us knew. And so not only that, Logan was killed on the second deadliest day of the year, which is May 24th. So
Yeah.
do you think that if my brother knew that on May the 24th was the second deadliest day of the year, or that Memorial Weekend was the deadliest weekend of the year, or that 95, he had no
Yeah.
idea that his son was going to get on it. But if he even had known those things, he never would have parked that thing in the driveway to begin with. And that's my point. There's all kinds of data, but you will never know what that data is because it's taken me 11 years to dig into this stuff to find it. And it's
Yeah.
not an easy task. And I've got sheets and sheets and sheets and spreadsheets of all kinds of articles and data things and points and people you can talk to. But I'll tell you what, I don't want to do this. I do not want to sit here and go deep diving into people's
No.
accidents and fatalities. I don't want to do it. But I have done it because I am trying to make sure that we are truly genuinely saving children. And the only way that that's ever going to happen is if you listen first.
Yep.
That's it. And so it's not just like wear your helmet. I don't need to wear my helmet right now. There are so
Yeah.
many cases where people are fatally injured. It's like my buddy John said. He's like, the accidents happen, not always, but they happen a lot. Not when people they don't think they're going for a ride. They're just using it to go from here to there.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole point of like that loading and unloading. And like, oh, I'm just unloading. Like I'm gonna ride here in a
I'm
little
just,
bit.
yeah,
It's dangerous out on the trail because I'm going high speed. But the reality is like that loading and unloading, or just riding around the yard. And I mean, I even remember I was probably about the same age. I was a young kid, and I remember having snowmobiles, like old 1970 snowmobiles in the property. And I came home from school on the school bus one afternoon, and I got on the snowmobile and I did a little loop in the yard, and it was the first ride of the season, so there was not a base of snow. And the throttle got stuck open. We found out later because some acorns had gotten shoved in the carburetor from mice or chipmunks or something. And I was home alone with my little brother, and parents weren't home, and so I did probably similar to what Logan did, and I got on a machine that I didn't belong on at the time. I shouldn't have been on it, and the throttle stuck wide open, and I went across the yard and I smoked a tree. I think I was
mm,
wearing a helmet. I think, if I remember right. But it was a very nasty crash, and I still to this day have a massive, not massive, but a pretty good sized scar on my thumb to remind me of decisions like that. And you're right. It's one thing I just want to call out because it happens, and it doesn't matter if it's avalanche safety, these kind of accidents, these late afternoon accidents, or the time of the year, the season. It's like the term that I like to use is the stoke is high, right? Like you think about like the energy level, like you said that first spring weekend where everybody's
yeah,
getting out and getting out of school, and the stoke is high. It's the beginning of the season. It's whatever it is. But that should be that spidey sense in the back of everybody's minds is like at that point that the quote unquote stoke is high and you're just feeling that adrenaline rush and that energy to go push, push, push to go do something like exciting or incredible. That's the moment that it's time to just slow down, triple check, double check in with people, slow everything down a little bit, right?
yeah. And I love that you say that because if I as we talked about before, it's sort of like, well, I don't know, do you believe in divine intervention? But if I look like how fortuitously the first time that I ever had left my home as a teenager to go with anybody to a party, it was Memorial Weekend in 1983. And
Hmm.
I was out in the same community where Logan was fatally injured, went to a party, and two girls had gotten on an ATV. uh, you know Two girls, neither one of them knew what they were doing, and they wrecked it on the road right out in front of the party. One girl was life flighted to one hospital, another one went to another hospital by ambulance.
Yeah.
And I was there for that accident, and I actually had ended up going to one of the hospitals to visit one of the girls because half the people went to see somebody else, but this other girl was from California and nobody knew her, so we
Yeah.
went to with her. But my point is that was a Memorial Weekend. And what happens is, I think parents, you're sitting around, you're chatting, everybody's having a few drinks, and your kids come up to you and they're like, "Hey mom, can I go ride on this?" And you're like, "Oh, yeah, it's fine." You're like, you don't want to tell them no because you don't want them to not have fun. But the truth is that you should ask yourself, do they have a helmet? If the answer is no, you should go, it's probably not a good idea. if you ask yourself the second question, do they have safety certification? If the answer to that is no, so that's a no and a no, then that's
Yep.
like, yeah, probably not. But here's another statistic that is a big factor probably the biggest factor in Logan's fatality is Logan was on an adult sized machine. So 92 to 97% of all of these ATV related fatalities are on children. I'm talking of the child fatalities are on adult sized machines.
Yeah.
So if you have a child who does not have a helmet, who has no safety certification, who's on an adult sized machine, who's going to be anywhere possibly near the road, and nobody has thought about rollovers, and
Yeah.
is a male, and it's late in the afternoon, and it's a holiday weekend, man, the alarm should be dinging, dinging,
Yeah.
dinging, dinging,
It's
dinging
like
in your head.
it's
And
like
nobody
paying.
thinks of it like that.
Yeah, I mean the analogy I have is like it's playing Russian roulette with five bullets in a six chambers, right? You know, out of the six chambers. Like, I mean, you don't get
Exactly.
you're giving yourself one small chance of maybe being successful. Outside of that, it's like you're just stacking the cards against yourself. So
Yeah, and John, I thank you. I mean, I know we've been on this call for an hour, and I finally got to the point that I'm trying to make.
yeah,
And all these things are important to going into this, but this is the point. It
yep,
is that there are this cascade of fatal errors. There's precipitating factors. There's storm clouds. Call it whatever you want. And it's not my information. I'm not the person who knows these things. The people who know it are the people from the American Pediatric Association, the University of
yeah,
California, Berkeley, Wisconsin ATV UTV Association, the Wisconsin DNR, the Minnesota DNR. I mean, on and on and on and on. There are literally hundreds of organizations that know this data. All I'm doing is telling you what they,
you're
they're,
amplifying it
here's
to
the
help get the
problem.
message out,
Well,
right?
but understand that these people have dedicated most of their lives or some big portion of their lives to solving this problem. But who's going to listen to something like that? So they're
Yeah,
talking to a group of like maybe 40 people in their group, and they've got this vast knowledge and expertise. And none of us have access to that information because it's not something anybody wants to talk about. And so that's what the RideSafe Foundation does. We will go in and we will have these hard conversations so that we're getting this information so that I can just say, so now you can go, okay, it's Memorial Weekend coming up, and my 14-year-old just walked up to me and she said, "Hey, Mom, can I ride the side by side with the four other kids from your family in the same side by side?" And there's no seatbelts, no helmet, there is no adult supervision, and they're going to go out onto the roadway or whatever. I mean, the answer is no. We've been talking about ATVs, but on the side by side, the fatality numbers that are happening, and these are mass casualty events in a real way where you've got multiple fatalities, and oftentimes it's from, for the same family. I mean, literally in the last 6 months, I'm aware of, I can think of two right off the top of my head, two cases where both brothers died, both in side by sides. And, one happened in Minnesota, one happened in Texas that I'm just personally aware of. But I
yeah,
spoke with a mother a week ago Sunday, well, 2 weeks ago today. She lost two of her children 9 years ago in a side by side accident where there were five kids in a side by side, no seatbelts that worked. She lost her 5-year-old and her 6-year-old because the 12-year-old was driving and stepped on the gas, had no idea what she doesn't know, and it was got that power of the force, scared her. She jerked the wheel, it flipped it, 111. It was 1,100 pounds, and it instantly killed her 5-year-old and killed her 6-year-old. Came in and out of life, and then life flight brought her back, and then she died on the way to the hospital again. But she's like, 5 of my kids went on home on vacation, or went to Texas on vacation. 2 of them came back in coffins. So
yeah,
this is not a joke. In
yeah.
just outside of Dallas Fort Worth, we just lost two 14-year-old girls. Did the same thing. We've also had an accident. This is all in March. A 12-year-old driving a side by side who was fatally injured, and then a 7-year-old was driving. The 12-year-old died. But everybody else in that vehicle, 4 to 5 passengers, they're all being either life flighted or going by ambulance. Those aren't small issues.
No,
We just had a case in Minnesota here also where you've got 17-year-old that is has been, I mean, she's on a ventilator. And I mean, this is, when people are life flighted because
yeah,
they're
is there?
injured in one of these accidents,
Yeah,
we can talk about fatalities and the numbers are significant. but the injury rates are truly, truly
Yeah.
terrifying. And the reality is it's, I, I want to say this, in the state of Wisconsin, they have got such wonderful statistics. So last year they had 499, just over 499,000 ATV and UTV registrations in 2023. Of that number, they had only 360 injury accidents. Out of 499,000 registered vehicles, there were only 360 injury accidents, which is a heck of a thing.
Yeah.
That's amazing, right? They did have 32 fatalities. Only one of them was wearing a helmet. Now, the state of Wisconsin, in everything that I've seen, has the best program in the nation. They have the best data reporting from their Department of Natural Resources, and their state association, the Wisconsin ATV UTV Association, they are true experts at this issue. They know their audience, they're well connected, and they have been doing safety
Yeah.
messaging for their inception. So if you look at that model in the state of Wisconsin, this is something that we can do in states all over the country. And Wisconsin has over 66,000 miles of trails. Nobody wants to discourage riding, and I
Yeah.
certainly don't want to discourage riding, but it's a matter of, hey, ride all you want. But if you want to prevent something like this that from happening, because it's totally preventable, then
Yep.
pay attention. And it's pay attention to those things that I just mentioned. It's the helmet, the
Yeah.
safety, oh, wear your helmet. No, wait a minute. 9 out of 10 fatalities, there's no helmet.
Yeah.
That's why you wear your helmet, not just wear your helmet,
Yep.
right? So
Nope, that's
get
awesome.
me riled
So,
up.
oh yeah, we got you fired up tonight, that's for sure. So let's touch real quickly on the partnership with BRP and how that kicked off. And
Yeah.
again, we're gonna get close to wrapping this up here shortly. So let's
Yep.
just do a kind of a light coverage of BRP, how they got involved, and how they're continuing to support you, and then we'll get into the end here of any kind of final words you have. So
Yeah. Well, I just got to say, I mean, I really, I can't tell you how much I just absolutely love the people at BRP. Over my
awesome.
30-year plus career, BR, their various brands, whether it's Skidoo or Can-Am or what have you, have supported so many of the programs that I have been a part of. But their leadership has always changed throughout, 35 years. It's always somebody different. They don't have any idea who I am or what we did 15 years ago or 10 years ago or 5 years ago even.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had an opportunity to share, Logan's story with one of the executives from BRP, who then felt like, wow, this is something that, he wanted to share this with higher leadership. So they did what they call just a listen and learn. He's like, he invited a number of their top people to come in and just listen. And so that's what we did. I mean, I spent an hour, telling him who I am and what I've done and what happened to Logan and what I see and, what the numbers are. And, because in the United States, we've lost over 4,000 children under the age of 16 on ATVs since 1982. And so, and they, so they hear that number. They were like, that's shocking. 1 out of 5 is a child under the age of, 16 and whatnot. But anyway, yeah, after I had an opportunity to share that with them, they reached back to me and said, hey, this is something that we're so committed to doing. And they've been allocating a significant portion of their, corporate resources to their Ride Responsibly program. And again, that's an effort to help consumers to make the right decision. So, these OEMs, it's really important to know that the OEMs and the aftermarket industry, even, from the gear standpoint, like never in the history of the world have we had better equipment, safer gear,
Yeah.
better machines. And that's really because these companies have invested so much into making them safe. And a lot of that has been learned out of what's happened on the motorsport and power sports side of things. So, this is something they're deeply committed to. But the problem that our industry has is they can only get their arms around their customer base. I mean, right? That's all.
Yeah.
That's all. They only have the
Yeah.
power to do that. So the question is, if they're not just concerned about their customers, they want to reach everybody. And this is much like our new partnership with Nationwide. Nationwide Insurance. They want to reach everybody, and so they're not just worried about their customers. And so when they started to see that, boy, they could help us, create events and go to schools and work directly with children, and then also start to move the needle in terms of not just saying like, oh, wear your helmet, but here's
Yeah,
why. They wanted to be a part of that, and they were the ones that were the first ones to come to the table and really provide the seed money to help us, rebrand and build our website and hire staff and do that kind of stuff and create events. And I mean, they've been incredible. They've always had, I don't know what it is about them, but they really have a knack of hiring true visionaries.
that's awesome.
Like I said, I mean, and they continue to do that today. So,
Very
yeah,
good.
well, that's what happened with BRP. And yeah, they're just, they provide a lot of support to us in the way of providing, resources and activity books and those kinds of things for children when we interact with them, and, providing helmets and equipment at events and those kinds of things, and staff and all
That's
kinds of
awesome.
marketing support. Yep. So,
Yep.
yeah, they've been wonderful.
Perfect. And most importantly, what do we think that all of the folks who watch this can do to help out, right? It's like, what people who are watching this today, they're going to obviously be inspired and compelled to hopefully share this out to make it known. But specifically for you guys, what can they do to help you out in your mission?
Yeah, well, good question. Number one, listen, you know, I mean, I cannot, and I thank you for giving me a platform to be able to share, because there's a lot that I can say, but if you're not listening, it doesn't matter what I say. And so what's important is just listen. I've had a number of recent events where I've been telling this story, and what I realize is that most people, when I'm talking to them about safety, they will resist that because they feel that that's an affront to their freedom. I'm not here trying to take anybody's freedom away. I'm doing it because I know what can happen if you don't know what I didn't know. That's
Yeah,
all. I'm just trying to equip you so you can make the decisions that you need to
yeah,
make around the power sports equipment that you have to keep your family safe. The second thing I realize is that a lot of people will, when they're listening to me, they're immediately coming up with all these reasons that it doesn't apply to them. Oh, we're really safe. My husband's ex-military and he's super safe. Oh, my son rides all the time and he always wears his gear. And then after they keep talking to me, about 25 minutes into it, they'll suddenly have an aha moment about all the things that they're doing on a daily basis that fits within that precipitating factors
yeah,
that I talked about earlier. And then it really hits them. But they only get that when they're really listening. So, number one, it's just listen, listen. And number two, you know, say something yourself. I'm not the only person in the world that should be the loudmouth about this.
yeah,
And it's not an easy conversation to have. I get that. They don't like to talk about these things for a lot of different reasons. But I will tell you that if we do not talk about it, if we don't have the courage to speak up and to be able to say to people, help them to understand, not because we're trying to take something away from them, but we're trying to, in love and in caring about those people, truly protect them. Like, say something. Once you know, then go ahead and say something. And that's it. Listen, say something. And then the other thing you can do is pitch in. And you can pitch in a couple of different ways. We run events in various different places around the country, and we have been asked to host events that is way beyond the capacity that we currently have to be able to do these things, because we need people. We need marketing staff, we need PR staff, I need people heading volunteer coordination, we need project managers, I need athletes, we need influencers, we need social media platforms. We're trying to reach every single child in America. And it's not one OEM that can manage that. And I certainly, and our team, we can't manage it on our own. We all have to recognize this is something we can do something about. So, they can go to my website, not my website, the RideSafe Foundation website. You can reach me on LinkedIn. That's the best place. If you want to communicate with me directly, then look me up on LinkedIn. So it's Kristen Almer, Almer. on LinkedIn, and you will find me and send me an invitation. It's the best place to find me and communicate with me. And then, but you can go to our website also, and you can, send an email through that, and I'll receive that as well. And just, let me know that you're there and you want to help. We have a lot of needs that, we've got, like, we're trying to incentivize kids to do this.
Yeah.
We're trying to also reward the people that are in the field that have been doing this for so long, that are exhausted, whether that's law enforcement agents or that's, Powersports Safety advocacy groups or trainers, certified instructors. There's been a lot of people that have been trying to do this for a long time, and they're exhausted because the numbers of these machines are continuing to go up, and the
Yeah.
number of people wanting to communicate a safety message is going down because those people are aging out. And
Yeah.
so, it's like we need the creative, just the creativity that exists in our industry. I mean, all these people, I'll tell you this, athletes and influencers are the cornerstone of everything we do. And there's a real
Awesome.
reason for that. It's because they are the masters of safety. They truly have mastered the art of safety, because there's not a single one of them that have ever done anything significant, let alone great, in any kind of form of competition if they hadn't mastered the art of safety first. And that's not to say that accidents won't happen to them, but they know exactly what the scenario is, and they're planning for that in advance of it. Do you see? And it's they that need to be recognized as masters of safety. Not, I mean, listen, I appreciate certified safety experts, but there's not a certified safety expert anywhere on this planet that you'll find that's got more experience than the world's top athletes. And so
Yep.
that's who we really need to share their experience. And that's what we do. We invite them to come and be with us at the events, at schools. And, the kids just get so excited. They're so
Yeah.
happy. They just,
That's
oh
awesome.
my gosh, they're so happy. And then they want to have helmets. When we leave a school, they want to have helmets. This
Yeah.
past fall, we did 6,500 children in 4 days. We did 14,250 hours of instruction. And we are now, we did another event in March in the state of Arizona. We were asked by the state of Arizona to assist them. We have now been asked to help pilot the Let's Champion Rider Safety program with Nationwide. We'll be doing a big event in September at the Iowa State Fairgrounds. So yeah, we need a lot of help. We've got the whole state of Oregon that's asking us to help there. I've got multiple requests in Wisconsin, Minnesota, West Virginia, Tennessee, Pennsylvania, Florida, Texas. Yeah, I mean, we need help.
There you go.
So
And
call
get
me.
there you go. We got the message
I'll
out.
tell you what to
Everybody,
do.
there you go. We've shared this out. Everybody will continue to share this out. We'll get the message out, and I think it's time to wrap it up for the evening. Any kind of just final thank yous, shout outs, anything you want to do before we wrap this up?
Yeah, I really want to say thank you to Hubert Rowland. Hubert is Travis Pastrana's right-hand man, and that's how people know him. But you
Yeah,
ought to remember Hubert for being so selfless and being so wonderful. Without him, we wouldn't be where we're at today. It's really because of his heart. And there's a lot of people to thank. I mean, Hubert is the co-founder, but like my good buddy John Miller, he's the head of marketing for Hypercraft, and he's a co-founder of Hypercraft as well.
he's a
He's
friend of mine.
donated
I
so
know him
many
well. He's
hours.
actually been on our show
Yeah,
before, just so you know. So
he's donated so many hours of, design help and branding help. And, he's just very high level and has been able to give me guidance as we, take this from being like, oh, it's an idea. We had a problem, and then I want to help the world. Well, now you got to grow some massive, nonprofit organization that you got to scale up. And I need real experts that can help me in that process so that I can do what I need to do. And he's been in there. The Kaloses, Sean and Kathy Kalos from the state of Arizona. Sean's a legend in the motorcycle industry, in motocross, and him and his wife have been training for 30 years. They're deeply involved in what we do. Lissa Marslick, who's a world-class photographer. She was Chad Reed's, photographer in Supercross, and, she's been a top, photographer in the snowcross industry. She's just been amazing, and she shoots all kinds of incredible images for us as well. But WATFA, really, with the Wisconsin ATV UTV Association, they have just been unbelievable. They have
that's
a
awesome.
massive, and Randy Harden and his team there, and Rob McConnell. They've been there with us right from the very beginning, and they are so knowledgeable. They know this they know this topic inside and out. And it is people like that that without I'm none of this is because of me. It's because of guys like Randy Harden and Rob McConnell.
Yeah,
They've been doing this for 40 years. And I'm just now getting wind of it, and I'm just trying to share with the world what they've been working on. So there's a
perfect.
lot of people like that. But yeah, no, I mean, there's a lot of people to thank.
Very good, very good. Well, thank you, Kristen, so much for coming on and, spending this time with us. And I know it's Central Time Zone where you're at. It's actually, late past my bedtime in your time zone. Not quite for me here yet, but
I'm drinking coffee, John. I'm not going to bed. Okay.
perfect, perfect, perfect.
Sorry.
But I just want to say thank you for coming on and sharing Logan's story and sharing your passion with everybody here. And I'll just leave everybody with the final words that I give everybody every time is, God bless you all and continue to live large. And of course, live life the fullest, make the most of every day, make a difference to others, right? That's what it's all about. And thank you so much, Kristen. And good night, everybody. Have a great night.
Thank you.